how Asia goes will in many ways determine how the 21st century goes. I will focus, though, on China, even though there's a lot else to cover. I begin by pointing out that multilateralism is essential for all we do. We simply cannot deal adequately with China's power and reach unilaterally. That said, we also cannot ask our partners and allies to choose between us. Many of them will, for example, want to have economic ties with China, even though they will emphasize security ties with the United States. That said, we also need to understand that there are limits to what some of these partners and allies are prepared to do. And I'm happy to discuss, for example, the limits that India might face. Whatever it is we do in the region, we need to beef up the economic dimension. To be blunt, we have sidelined ourselves. We have limited our involvement and our influence. We should join the CPTPP. There is tremendous economic and strategic arguments for doing so, and I am also prepared to argue there could be climate reasons for doing so. As for China, it is anything but a supporter of the status quo. Xi Jinping's China is fundamentally different than the China of his predecessors. It is stronger, wealthier, more repressive, and more assertive. But for all that, I do not think it is useful to use a Cold War framing for our relationship simply because China is so different than the Soviet Union was, and as a result, our response will need to be different. The priority for our foreign policy ought to be to shape China's behavior, particularly its external behavior. We should be imposing costs where we must and encouraging cooperation where we can. Toward that end, I believe, and despite what happened in the last 24 hours, a private, sustained strategic dialogue is in the interest of the United States, not as a favor to China, but as a tool of American national security. Consistent with that, I believe regime change is beyond our ability to induce, and in any event, is not essential. Democracy and human rights consideration can and should be a part of our conversation with China, but we must accept and approach them with the realization that, one, we have other priorities, and two, our ability to advance what we'd like to see in the realm of democracy and human rights in China is distinctly limited. When it comes to economics and technology, the United States should work with others on selective technological restrictions with a scalpel rather than with a blunt instrument. But here, I would say decoupling from China is neither necessary nor is it possible. What we should do, though, and something Congress can play a large role in, is increase our supply chain resilience. We can do that through multiple sourcing, through stockpiling, and through domestic and joint production arrangements with our partners and allies of selective items. We need to strengthen deterrence in the region. That obviously involves our military presence, cooperation with groupings such as the Quad. More than anything else, we must increase our ability to deter and prepare for and respond to any Chinese coercion against Taiwan. The stakes are enormous. Not to act would be, I believe, a strategic error of the first order. I do believe we should move from strategic ambiguity to strategic clarity in terms of the means of our policy, but then it is essential that we complement with this move to strategic clarity with strategic capability. We cannot allow a gap to persist between our commitments and our capabilities to act on them. Last, and for all this, I would say China policy begins not in the region, but it begins at home. We need to become more competitive with China, and this involves everything from increasing federal support for research and development, for basic research, the kind of thing companies cannot be expected to do on their own, for a wise immigration policy that attracts the most talented in the world to come and stay here, to build infrastructure, to improve our education. And second of all, we need to improve the reality as well as the appearance of our economic and political model. When we fail, we essentially let China off the hook. We basically lose the opportunity to show the advantages of a robust democracy and a robust market-oriented order. Therefore, their leaders feel no pressure from below. So if we want to succeed versus China, we need to become more competitive. But again, we need to pose a successful alternative. Thank you very much.
Hey guys, did you know we have a podcast called WJ Live?
The Western Journal's mission is to equip readers with the truth, and that's the same mission we have on WJ Live.
You'll hear from writers, editors, and special guests on the most important topics of the day.
You can watch us every day at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific on youtube.com/WJ Live.
While you're there, help us out by subscribing and hitting the bell so you don't miss any future episodes. See you there.